So again, good afternoon po sa lahat. Today we'll be discussing our module 2 or the fundamentals of outsourcing. Topical overview for this module, we'll discuss the two types of outsourcing. Outsourcing as a business strategy, outsource activities, processes, core versus non-core, readiness assessment, technologies, and trends. So our objectives by the end of this module, the student should be able to name and define the two types of outsourcing, enumerate the different outsourcing strategies, state the common types of activities, tasks, processes that can be outsourced, define the components of readiness assessment, identify what are the key technologies and trends in outsourcing. So we formally start our discussion, we'll have a short activity, putting things into context. So I have here three contexts or a statement, and I will be asking your ideas or opinions about specific context or statement. So first, no man is an island. When you hear or read the no man is an island, ano ba ibig sabihin nito? What is your opinion or idea? No man is an island. Anyone? Or kahit sa chat section, no man is an island. Wala pong tao ang hindi pwedeng mabuhay ng walang kasama. That's correct. Or yung sa dasal, walang nabubuhay para sa sarili lamang. So, every or any company, businesses, organizations, walang company or organizations or businesses na nasa kanila na lahat ng resources, ng lahat ng means. No man can survive on their own. That's correct. Meron pa po ba? Last idea. No man is an island. Let's hear from, ayun. Even if wanted to be an island, you can never truly be alone in this lifetime. It's also correct. Okay, thank you po. So next context, everything is connected. Somehow similar with our first context or statement. Everything is connected. Anyone? On the chat section, or you can raise your hand. Everything is connected. Let's hear from Miss Mauhay, Shaira. Shaira,
Yes.
idea about this context, everything is connected. Mm-hmm. Miss Agolto, Mr. Lunar. Okay, from the chat section, from Miss Aguila, hindi po magagawa ang isang bagay na hindi mo pa nasisimulan ang nauna. Mm-hmm. Thank you. From Mr. Cabrales, kahit po sa theory ng 6 degrees of separation which states that all people on average are 6 or fewer connections away from each other that can be applied po to everything. Thank you. Halimbawa po, you tend to think something from your mind. Then after po nun, hindi mo mamamalayan na yun na pala gagawin mo physically. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Pabito.
Um, Yun po, sa concept mo ng interconnectedness when it comes to ecosystem, food web, networking, and even business processes, there are factors, dependent variables, and interdependent. So yun po,
All
connected po.
right. Thank you. Last, Miss Clemeno.
Ang nasa isip ko naman po dyan ay para pong yung, kagaya po nung sinabi ni Pabito, yung para po siyang sa circle of life po.
Mm-mm.
Meron pong nangyayaring exchange po ng needs sa environment para po magtuloy-tuloy yung pag ano po ng, yun, circle of life. Tapos kung ano pong ginagawa mo po ngayon, makaka-apekto po siya sa future. Parang ganun po ang interpretation ko po.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, on our first module or in the previous module or discussion, you were asked about what you would prefer to eat at home for breakfast. A fully loaded cheeseburger or a corned beef. So, if maalala nyo, from that illustration, we have realized that we live in a world where everything is interconnected. Or that is the focus of these two concept or context. Okay, now let us consider another statement or context. The nature of business is what? Is blank. For you, what do you think is a nature of business? What is its main purpose? Anyone? The nature of business is what? Yes, to serve the needs of the clients. That's correct. To provide the goods or the service to the customer, to the client. Profit earning. The best answer is profit. The nature of business is to make money. Without profit, entrepreneur. So again, the nature of business is to make money. Without profit, imagine businesses cannot sustain themselves and fulfill its other goals. Like, yun nga, providing the goods and services to the public, to the customer. Without money, without profit, paano mag-produce, paano gagawa ng goods or magpo-provide ng goods and services to our customers, to our clients. And of course, and also providing employment to other people. Without profit, the businesses or the organizations, paano sila mag-hire, maghahanap ng empleyado. So, also on our first module, we have learned how outsourcing addresses the strategic goals of companies. So in this module, or the module 2, we shall look more deeply in the different ways of outsourcing used by the companies for different purposes to ultimately make their businesses or companies more competitive and in the end more profitable. So we have two types of outsourcing. We have the third party and the shared service center or the SSC. From the word itself, when you say third party, ano ba yun? Third party. Anyone? Third party. Idea? Okay. Third party, it is owned by a service provider or a vendor, a local entity or part of a global group. Third party providing services to clients of the service provider. Any company that has any company that has a vendor or service provider, that relationship, that connection, we call that as the third party outsourcing. For example, PLDT company. So it is internet service provider. Of course, kailangan ng customer service. PLDT company will hire another company. Company na ang field ay for customer service. So that concept, that relationship, yung sa pag-hire ni PLDT ng another company, yun ay third party outsourcing. Another example, transitioning, yung pag-transition ng face-to-face classes to online class or virtually na lahat. So, merong ilang university or school na yung process ng kanilang enrollment ay manually or manual processing of data. So, ngayon, if that university will create an enrollment system, and kapag hindi sila yung gumawa ng enrollment system na yun at nag-hire sila ng company to develop that system, so that is also a third party outsourcing. Gets? Press 1 sa chat section if malinaw. Press 2 if hindi. Okay. Thank you po. Next type is the Shared Service Center or the SSC. So, SSC it is wholly owned by the mother company, providing services entirely to affiliates and subsidiaries, or more rarely, the clients of the mother company. So, best example, if you are familiar with the San Miguel Corporation, San Miguel Company, yung beer. So, sa San Miguel Corporation, meron silang iba't ibang department or tinatawag nilang division. So, sa pag-create ng packaging ng mga beer such as the bottles, the cans, including the plastic and yung mga cartoons. Ang gumagawa nun ay ang San Miguel Packaging Products or the SMPP. San Miguel Packaging Products. So with that, shared service center, lahat ng processes ng isang company, sila yung gumagawa. Hindi nag-hire si San Miguel Corporation ng another company para sa paggawa ng kanilang packaging. And kapag nagkaroon ng problema doon sa packaging nila, si San Miguel Corporation yung mag-provide ng solution. So that is the shared service center. Disadvantage, kasi kapag third party, kunwari company ko, kunwari ay beer din. Nag-hire ako ng another company para sa packaging. So kapag nagkaroon ng issue with the packaging, hindi ako yung mamamroblema, hindi yung company ko. Ang mamamroblema ay yung hinire kong company. So again, third party, nag-hire ng another company for some resources, for some functions or processes, while shared service center, sila lahat ang gagawa ng resources. Another example, Bat State yung Alangilan. So we have 3 colleges here, the CICS, CIAFA, CIT. Halimbawa sa atin sa CICS for general education courses or yung tinatawag nating minor subjects. Kulang tayo ng isang instructor for a specific course or subject. Kulang ng expertise for that subject. So the first approach ng university, hahanap siya ng faculty sa CIAPA and sa CIT kung meron pang hindi ganong fully loaded ng faculty. With that, hiram tayo or kukuha tayo ng faculty sa ibang college or department. That is also shared service center outsourcing. Question. O, isa pa example. Meron akong company, ABC company. Startup company. So, meron akong IT department. May IT people ako. Nagpagawa ako ng system. Kunwari ay for human resources. So, nagpagawa ng system sa aking employee. So, kapag nagkaroon ng error or ng issue or ng bugs yung system, within the company lang din or company ko lang din ang gagawa ng solution or magdi-debug nung system. Kasi nga, wala naman kaming hinire na other company para mag-work or gumawa or mag-develop ng system na yon. Sige po, noted po. Malinaw ang pinagkaiba ng third party and shared service center. Wala pong question. Wala naman po. Ayan, examples of, there are some companies na makonsider natin as third party outsourcing. We have the Accenture, Aegis, Convergys, IBM, Cytel, Sutherland, Skies, Teletech, Teleperformance, and TELUS or TELUS. So basically, these companies ay consider siya as IT BPM or BPO company. For the shared service center, we have the ANZ Bank, Chevron, Citigroup, Dell, JP Morgan Chase, Manulife, and Thomson Reuters. So that are the example or some companies under third-party outsourcing and SSC. Next, strategies for outsourcing. So we have 5 strategies. We have the multi-sourcing, crowdsourcing, onshoring, nearshoring, and offshoring. Tandaan. So first, multi-sourcing. From the definition, multiple vendors for clients outsource project. Ano kaya ang ibig sabihin nun? Multiple vendors for client outsource project. Anyone? Example. Excuse me. Example, the GM's Brazilian company or the GM's Brazilian company e-commerce site. So, gagawa sila ng e-commerce website. So, para magawa yung e-commerce website, the GM's Brazilian, ang ginawa nilang approach or strategy is the multi-sourcing or multiple vendors or multiple outsourcing. So, para mabuo si e-commerce website, nag-hire si GM's Brazilian ng multiple vendors such as the Oracle for the database, AT&T for the internet service provider, for the Microsoft, Cisco, and HP, and IBM. So, para mabuo si e-commerce site, kailangan itong mga vendors na to. May kanya-kanya silang role. And good thing for multi-sourcing or multiple outsourcing, kapag itong e-commerce website nagka-problema sa database, si Oracle lang ang magpo-provide ng solution or magde-debug. Siya yung bahala doon. Kapag nagka-problema sa internet service, si AT&T lang. So, that is multi-sourcing. Multiple outsourcing, having multiple vendors for specific project. Example, may gusto akong product for my business. And yung product na yun, mabubuo lang siya from multiple sources, from multiple vendors. Kasi wala ako ng lahat ng resources para mabuo yung product na yun. Gets? Press 1. Kung gets, press 2. Kung konti pang explanation or example for multi-sourcing. On the chat section. Sige. Another example. Ano ba ang on-trend ngayon? Kunwari ay yung mga sa beauty products, yung mga sabon, yung mga panglagay sa muka, yung mga madalas ko nakikita sa Facebook. Kunwari, as a business owner, wala ako ng lahat ng resources na kailangan ko sa paggawa noong yung bottle, yung chemical for that specific product, for that soap, wala ako for packaging, wala ako for ano po bang meron doon? Yun. Wala ako for packaging, wala ako for chemicals, wala ako for sa bottle, mga gandun. So it means, mag-hire ako ng company. Mag-hire ako ng company for sa pagbuo ng sabon, mag-hire ako ng company para sa packaging. So that is multiple vendors. Kailangan kong mag-hire ng maraming or ng multiple service provider, kailangan kong mag-hire ng multiple companies para mabuo yung product. Kasi wala ako ng lahat ng resources para mabuo yung product. Gets? Or konti pa. Ano po bang example? Clear na ba dun sa nag-2? Or konti pa? Yan. Clear na po. Sige po. Another example, grocery store. or yung mga City Mart, hindi lang naman isa yung kanilang manufacturer. Meron silang pinagkukunan ng mga for halimbawa sa mga um, pagkain bukod yung sa mga pang alak, skincare, hindi isang company lang yung kinukunan nila, hindi isang service provider lang. Marami silang vendors, marami silang service provider para doon sa mga tinitinda ng grocery store. So, ayun ang another example. Clear na? Sige po. Next, crowdsourcing. Familiar naman sa crowdsourcing. When we say crowdsourcing, ano ito? Idea. Madalas ko ito nakikita sa Facebook. Crowdsourcing lang po. Ano pong company yung magandang nag-o-offer ng ganitong services? Or crowdsourcing lang po, ano pong school dito sa Batangas ang maganda for senior high school? So from that example, ano yung ibig sabihin ng crowdsourcing? Anyone? Crowdsourcing. From the word itself, crowd. Getting information or opinion from others. So that is the crowdsourcing. This is the practice of obtaining the needed services, ideas, or opinion or content from a large group of people, especially on online community. So, naghahanap sila, nahingi sila ng opinion, ng idea, ng services sa maraming tao. For example, a game developer. A game developer who releases a beta version of a game for public testing. Sige po. So, to test and evaluate a product or that game, that application, crowdsourcing or for the developer, they invited people to see and test their application, their game. Why? Kasi it would have been an added cost to the company to hire professionals. So the best alternative for that is to they invited people to see and test the software. So that is crowdsourcing. Nahingi sila ng opinion, ng idea. Testingin mo tong aking application, itong aking game. Anong masasabi mo? Meron pa bang mga issues, mga bugs? That is crowdsourcing. They are asking for a large number of people ng opinion, ng ideas. Next, onshoring, vendor in the same home country as the clients. So the clients and the vendors ay nasa sa isang bansa. Example, PLDT, example natin kanina, the PLDT company ay nasa Pilipinas. Mag-hire sila ng kanilang vendor or service provider or mag-hire sila ng company na nasa Pilipinas din. Another example yung San Miguel Beer kanina. As part ng company or ng organization or ng business ang San Miguel Packaging Products. Of course, yung San Miguel ay nasa Pilipinas and yung kanilang division which is the SMPP ay nasa Pilipinas din. So again, onshoring, vendor in the same home country as the clients. Advantages on the positive side, onshoring allows immediate response due to the nearness of the service provider. Kapag may kailangan si client, doon sa kanyang service provider, immediate, mabilis yung response. Kasi yung time zone naman, same lang. At nasa isang bansa. For instance, product designers in the same country can respond to market feedback quickly. Since the service provider and the client ay nasa isang bansa, alam or aware si service provider, si vendor sa mga trending or on trend or ano yung mga gusto ng tao. Local contractors also have same market knowledge, culture, language, communication styles, and minimizing culture issues. So for the communication between the client and the vendor or the service provider, hindi na mahirap. Same sila ng language, ng communication style, and ng culture. On the negative side, there is a risk that the contractors staff may not be as trained as those hired by the company. Possible daw yung mga skills ng hinire the vendor and the service provider ay hindi ganung ka-trained or kagaling ng mga employee ng client. There is also a risk of higher attrition, given that the staff members do not see themselves as employee of the client company. So kapag onshoring, kunwari, nag-work ako sa vendor or third-party company such as Accenture. So ang client namin, kunwari, ay PLDT. So some agents, some employees, gusto nilang ma-feel na sila ay part ng client, na sila ay part ng PLDT company. Hindi lang part noong Accenture. And sometimes they may also be less motivated to deliver the quality of the product or services. Question. Onshoring, again, onshoring is outsourcing in the same country. The vendors, the service provider, and the client ay nasa isang country. Nasa isang same country. Question? Clear? Clear na po? Sige po. Next. Nearshoring. Nabubulol ako. The transfer of business to a nearby country, often sharing the same border. So in this setup, both parties such as the client and the vendors expect to benefit from one or more of the following. The geographic, the time zone. For example, sa Philippines and some country in Asia, hindi ganun or merong kaparehas tayo ng time zone. Cultural, linguistic, economic, political, historical linkages. So a good example would be the US or the United States business outsource a business to Mexico. Other than the labor being cheap, it would be easier for the businesses to manage their offices in Mexico since its location is just beside the country. So kapag kunwari sa Manila or nasa Manila yung company, then yung kanilang client, nasa Manila yung service provider or vendor. Then yung client ay nasa Hong Kong. So kapag may kailangan meeting personally, so madali lang ang pagpunta. Kasi yun nga, nearby country. Nearshoring, malapit ang service provider at client, vice versa. Advantages, fee for service, variability rather than fixed, compensation cost, significant labor cost arbitrage. So variability in most instances implies a certain degree of uncertainty that is something uncontrollable. So as future managers and business owners, uncertainty, unpredictability, and uncontrollability in your business operations are terms that can cause a significant amount of discomfort within the business. Fee variability over fixed costs actually works in your favor as a client or buyer, as you can forecast the number of transactions and not be locked into a fixed plan and potentially have to pay for unused capacity. Significant labor cost arbitrage. Arbitrage can have um, different meanings. As noun, for a business, investing or investment. As a verb, again in terms of business, as merchandise or a trade. Nearshoring. Nearshoring is outsourcing in a nearby country within the same time zone. So that is nearshoring. Disadvantages, yan. Additional coordination costs, sourcing knowledge and communications. Transfer pricing or tax margin requirements. Example, Hong Kong retail firm offshoring garments manufacturing in Manila. The last strategies for outsourcing is offshoring. The vendor and the client in different countries. The vendor nasa Pilipinas, ang client nasa US. Ang vendor nasa Pilipinas, ang client nasa Australia. Ang vendor nasa Pilipinas, ang client nasa Europe. Sobrang layo or malayo talaga. So, offshoring in this arrangement, in these strategies, the vendor and the client are in different countries, in different time zones. For instance, a retail firm in Italy may outsource the manufacturing of their garments to Manila for some reasons. Italy to Manila. However, they may need to train some Filipinos about their culture and the language for better communication. Dito sa Philippines, merong mga companies or service provider companies or BPO company, yung client ay nire-require ng client na dapat alam ng employee yung language nila, yung culture nila. Though competitive naman yung sahod. For example, di ko natanda yung company, but meron sa Makati na ang client nila is Japanese or sa Japan. So, as part of the training, so mag-aaral kayo, pag-aaralan nyo yung language, yung salita ng Japan, and the culture. So, explain natin later kung bakit. Offshoring or offshore outsourcing is the most popular form of outsourcing. It has three main advantages. Allows company to focus on core business. Fast ramp up down at reasonable cost. Opportunity to expand into new areas cost effectively. So, to illustrate these advantages, let us look at the personal electronic giants such as the Apple and Samsung. Beyond being competitors in the mobile phone and tablet market segments, they are also in business together, si Apple at si Samsung. So si Apple contracted Samsung to produce processor chips for their highly successful product offering of the iPhone. So ang gumagawa ng processor ng mga mobile phones or ng mga iPhones ay si Samsung. In this case, Apple was the buyer or the client and Samsung was the vendor or the service provider. Also, Corning company or yung nagpo-provide ng mga Gorilla Glass. So Gorilla Glass, familiar naman tayo, it is a very robust and durable glass sa ating mga mobile phones. So in this instance, some companies ay nakipag-contract or communicate, partner with Corning company, such as the Apple, Nokia, and Samsung. So Apple, Nokia, and Samsung are all clients or buyers of the vendor. And the vendor and the service provider is the Corning. So, on the other hand, offshoring can have the following disadvantages. Data privacy, confidentiality issues, lack of right business acumen, right market knowledge in offshore location, cultural differences leading to delays and misuse, risk of high attrition in service provider with staff selection and training. So pinaka main fear or takot ng mga client kapag offshoring, though ito yung madalas na strategies na ginagamit, lalo na sa mga BPO companies here in the Philippines, puro offshoring kadalasan. Pinaka-fear nila or takot ng client is for the data privacy and confidentiality ng information ng possible customer ng client. So, on my first job, kwento muna, nag-work ako under the BPO company. So, our client ay internet service provider sa Australia. Ang tawag ay Telstra. Telstra para siyang PLDT, Converge, Globe. Internet service provider. So, on our company, client namin sa isang floor ay Australia. Merong iba't ibang department. Meron sa accounting, meron sa credit management, meron sa sales. Focus ako doon sa credit management. Sa credit management, lahat ng transaction ng customer ng client, doon in terms of credit card or yung pagbabayad ng customer ng client or yung pagbabayad ng customer ng Telstra through credit card na mag-handle ng credit management. So, ang employee nasa Pilipinas, mga Pilipino, so it means alam ng employee under the credit management yung credit card details ng customer ng Telstra. Merong instance or nangyari na si employee si employee dito sa Pilipinas ginamit yung credit card ng customer ng Telstra. So, that is the disadvantages or yung takot nga or fear ng client kapag offshoring. Kahit meron tayong sinusunod Data Privacy Act or kung anumang regulation ng company, ang mahirap magtiwala kapag may mga ganong issues na. So, ang ginawa ng employee, bumili siya ng kung ano-ano gadgets, appliances, gamit yung credit card ng customer sa Australia. And also, some disadvantages are the cultural sensitivity training ng mga employees. So, sabi ko nga kanina, pag offshoring, minsan yung client gusto yung culture din nila at yung communication style doon ay ganun din sa mga nagiging employee ng vendor company. Doon sa Telstra, yung culture doon or yung naging mindset nila ng mga tao doon, parang yung government nila, ang tawag nila ay ombudsman. So doon sa ombudsman, kapag nagreklamo yung mga tao, regarding sa isang company, sa isang establishment, worst scenario, gagawin ng ombudsman o ng government, ipapasara yung company or establishment. So priority lagi doon sa Australia yung people, yung tao, yung gusto. Dapat nabibigay yung tamang service sa kanila. May instance din na since ganun yung culture, kailangan mag-adjust sa employee at maging familiar doon ang employee ng service provider. So, kunwari, yung customer ng Telstra sa Australia, nagreklamo, ba't ako nawala internet isang linggo, ang sama ng service nyo, ganito ganyan. So, syempre, kahit naman tayo, ganun din yung ating magiging reaction. Worst case, sabihin ng customer, susumbong ko kayo sa ombudsman. Kapag narinig mo na or nabasa mo na, nagsabi na si customer ng ombudsman, so lahat ng kayang gawin or ibigay ng service provider dito sa Pilipinas sa customer, ibibigay. For example, naka-experience siya ng 1 week walang internet. From his or her bill or kung ano yung plan niya, pwede mong i-credit yon pwede mong i-divide into 1 week yung magiging bill niya. Or kunwari, ang plan niya ay $1,000 per month. Sabihin mo kay customer, gawin ko na lang $500 per month yung iyong plan. Gawa sa experience mo. So, syempre, as customer, 500 yung masisave ko per month, ang laki nun. Nag-iiba yung mood ko, para hindi na siya magsumbong sa ombudsman. Kasi pag nagsumbong, investigation sa Telstra, sa company, sa client. Worst case nga, ipasarado yung company. So, yun yung naging culture nila or yung parang mindset niya. So, yun yung disadvantages kapag offshoring. Again, offshoring is giving the work to a vendor or its affiliates in different countries, in different time zones. Question. Press 1. Hindi pala, ito na lang. So again, what are the 5 strategies for outsourcing? First, anyone?
Multi-sourcing.
Yeah, multi-sourcing. Second,
Crowdsourcing.
crowdsourcing.
Crowdsourcing po.
Third,
Onshoring.
Onshoring po.
onshoring. Pang-apat,
Nearshoring po.
nearshoring. And the last
Nearshore.
one is
Nearshoring.
Offshoring po.
Offshoring.
offshoring. So again, multi-sourcing, sourcing multiple vendors, having multiple vendors to finish the product or the good or services. Crowdsourcing, they are asking for the opinions, ideas, content in a large group of people, especially on online community. Onshoring, the vendors and the client ay nasa same country. Nearshoring, nearby country. Or basically, kadalasan same time zones. Offshoring, the client and the vendors ay in different countries, yung magkalayo talaga. Okay, so putulin muna natin dito. Let's have 10 minutes break. Balik tayo ng 2:20. Yung mga naka-data, pwede pong mag-leave muna. Balik na lang ng 2:20. Then, yung mga naka-goods naman na internet ay mag-stay na lang po. Ano muna, inom ng tubig, kain, hinga muna. So, start na ulit tayo. So, our next topic is the activities, tasks, and processes, or the core versus non-core activities, tasks, or processes. So, before moving to this topic, let us define these two things first, the core and the non-core. Let us use Reebok company as an example. Reebok company, it is an athletic company that creates and designs sports apparels. Keeping that in focus, the Reebok management or company choose to outsource its administrative human resource functions or the HR. Second, KFC is an American brand and Jollibee is proudly Pinoy. Despite the differences in their countries of origin, both companies closely protect their chicken recipes. Third, different cell phones companies use Android as the preferred operating systems on their smartphones. Google is the developer of Android. Despite using the same operating system, there are clear differences in product development and manufacturing processes between brands, which makes certain brands more durable and attractive than others. So for core activities, tasks, and processes, it is essentially what the company is known for. It is what you are bringing home, is what you are paying for, or how the company makes its money. Core activities are the bread and the butter of the business, the money makers of the company. So these activities, tasks, and processes are therefore not outsourced. Again, for core, it is not outsourced. Hindi pwedeng i-outsource. In our example, kanina, the KFC and Jollibee, the recipes on their chicken are their core activities, tasks, or processes. In the case of the mobile companies using Android for operating systems, their product development is what differentiates them from each other and would therefore compromise their core processes. Before we proceed to non-core, so core activities, tasks, and processes, what not to outsource. So we have here the design. So why do you think na hindi dapat i-outsource ang design ng isang company or businesses? Bakit kaya? Anyone? Bakit hindi dapat i-outsource ang design?
Baka po gayahin.
Baka gayahin. As per the definition kanina of the core activities, tasks, and processes, it is the unique value of the company. So kapag na-outsource mo yung design, possible maroon ka ng katulad. Second, the product development. Sa mobile phones, yun na nga, pare-pares ng Android. So that product development is the core activities, tasks, or processes of the company. Recipe, bakit kaya? Katulad nung sa KFC and Jollibee, kung bibigyan tayo ng 5 chicken sa harap natin, yung amoy pa lang, intellectual property, that's correct. Going back with the chicken, kunwari may 5 tayong chicken sa harap natin. Yung amoy pa lang at lasa ng chicken ng Jollibee, ng chicken, alam na natin kapag Jollibee yon. So, bakit hindi kailangang i-outsource yung recipe? Kasi baka gayanin. Hindi na yun yung magiging unique value ng isang company. So, for the core, again, for core, it means hindi dapat i-outsource ang mga activities, tasks, and processes. For the non-core activities, tasks, or processes, let us look at Rebook again. Rebook needs a human resource department to support their internal operations, but this is indirectly affects the fulfillment of their value propositions to their customers. HR, it is important to the company, but it is hindi ito yung bread and butter ng isang company. It is also a process wherein the task can be clearly defined and therefore can be easily understood and performed by others outside the company. Non-core, pwede siyang i-outsource, such as yung human resource nga ng Rebook. Kasi lahat naman ng processes ng company, pare-parehas naman ang process ng HR, ang function ng HR. Hindi yun yung unique value ng isang company. Non-core, it is well-defined, documented task, standard, or outputs. Ano yung mga pwedeng i-outsource? What to outsource? IT development, programming, documentation, unit and integration testing, implementation of new systems, conversion to new platforms, IT maintenance, application, and help desk network support. So an activity, task, or processes has to be well defined before it can be outsourced. If a process or task is well defined, it would be easy for others to do it. Example, kunwari gusto mo magpaluto ng adobo. Ano yung pipiliin mong approach? Ano yung mas madaling approach? First approach, tell the other person to cook adobo the way you cook it. Or second option, give specific instructions to follow on how you cook adobo. Kayo, on the chat section, ano yung pipiliin nyo? Papaluto ka ng adobo, ano kaya yung mas madali? Una, press 1, tell the other person to cook adobo the way you cook it. Second, press 2, give specific instructions to follow on how you cook adobo. On the chat section, 2. Of course, the detailed instruction would be easier to understand and undertake. So again, non-core activities, tasks, or processes should be well-defined and documented tasks. Core activities, hindi pwedeng i-outsource. Ito yung unique value ng company. Non-core activities, pwedeng i-outsource. So, in a business, knowing your core from non-core activities helps you identify what you can outsource. Kailangan mo nang alamin, pagplanuhan, intindihin. Sa ating company rin yung, alin lang yung ating pwedeng i-outsource. Alin yung hindi natin pwedeng i-outsource. So, these are the typically outsourced activities, tasks, and processes na na-discuss na natin on our first module. Sana ay tanda pa. First, we have the BPO, IT outsourcing, support functions, routine activities or activities that can be automated at larger centers, seasonal requirements, part-based activities. First, BPO, outsourcing of entire business process components or business functions, such as the HR, payroll, accounting, and financial. So again, kanina sa example natin, si Reebok, nag-hire siya ng human resource as their functions, human resource functions. Nag-hire siya ng another company. So again, same lang naman lahat ng company ng processes or ng HR function, pare-parehas lang naman. So okay lang siyang i-outsource. Hindi ito yung unique value ng inyong company. So ngayon, nalaman mo na yung process na i-outsource mo. So ito yung mga company that caters the human resource function. You can contact Shell, Coca-Cola, and etc. Same with financial, payroll, and accounting. Ito yung companies that caters the financial, payroll, and accounting process or function. Second, IT outsourcing, technical support, app dev, application management, data center operation, software as a service, cloud services. So ito yung mga company na nagpo-provide ng ganitong services or ng ganitong activities, task, or processes. Accenture, Chartis, Chevron, and HP. Ano pa yung pwedeng i-outsource? Na-discuss na din natin to on our first module. Cafeterias, coffee centers, security, janitorial services, tracking, shipping, building, and maintenance. Ano pa ang pwedeng i-outsource? Routine activities or activities that can be automated at larger centers. Here are some examples. Small banks outsourcing check processing to larger banks, riding on ATM base at multi-bank network. Small vendors using Amazon.com as data center, marketing and payment processing platform. Banks using common multi-bank core banking services of large technology providers. Ano pa? Seasonal requirements. So these are services that can only required in certain times, periods, or occasions. Seasonal requirement, yung example natin on our first module, si PLDT kailangan ng mas maraming employee during bare months, mag-hire siya, and that employee, ang contract niya ay hanggang December lang. Another example, kunwari pag December or Mother's Day, in demand, maraming bumibili ng flowers. So for that, or with that, mag-hire ng additional employee kasi hindi kaya i-cater yung demand for the flowers, yung customer service. So they would hire more people only for that season. After ng Mother's Day ng December, out of contract na sila. And for employees being hired, again, they would sign a contract in a short term. After that season, the contracts tapos na, but these people's record would be kept as reference, and they would be the priority hires the next time the company needs more personnel. So, pwede yung i-outsource. Second or next, all part-based activities. These are activities that are routine, scheduled with little uncertainty. You have the automobile, electronics, packaging, handicrafts, or garments for mass production. So, automobile are the best example for all part-based activities are the automobile assembly. So, example, Toyota, lahat naman, Toyota, yung car, yung sasakyan, hindi lahat ng parts ng car sila yung bumuo. They hire another company or manufacturers for some parts ng car. So, pwede din yung i-outsource. Question. Core activities, ito yung core activities, tasks, or processes. You should identify the unique value of the company, of the business or organizations, and hindi to pwedeng i-outsource. Just the design, product development, recipe, non-core activities, ito yung typically outsource or pwedeng i-outsource. And ito yung mga to. Ito yung mga pwedeng i-outsource. Walang question. So as usual, again, what are the typically outsourced activities, tasks, or processes? We have first, anyone, kahit sa chat section. Ano yung mga pwedeng i-outsource? First, we have business process outsourcing. Second, IT outsourcing. Third, support. Ano yung pangatlo? Support functions. Pang-apat, seasonal requirements ang panlima. Ang pang-apat, routine activities or activities that can be automated at larger centers. At yung panghuli, part-based activities. Thank you po. Second to the last topic, key technologies that support outsourcing. Ano yung mga technologies, tools na kailangan to support outsourcing? So technology is a very important tool in outsourcing, especially so that in many cases, the client and the service provider and the consumers are all separated from each other by space and time. Lalo na kapag offshoring. Nasa Pilipinas yung service provider client nasa US. Hindi naman pwedeng mag-travel pa. Time consuming and yung cost. So, these tools empower a workforce that increasingly needs to conduct a parts of its business functions virtually. These tools help the organization, given that some companies, again, may not be in the same country where the service provider is located. So the technologies enable sharing files, conduct meetings, or doing presentations. So ito yung mga ginagamit na technologies or tools kapag outsourcing or outsource company. For video conferencing, the HP Halo, Cisco, Sun, and for web-based conferencing and workflow tools, WebEx, MS Windows Meeting Space, SharePoint, and Google applications. Hindi naman po tayo gagamit nito. So, ayan lang po yung mga technologies na ginagamit. Last, so just an overview about the fundamentals of outsourcing or the processes in managing an IT BPM company. Though i-discuss naman natin to in the future modules, itong apat na to, I think module 3, but bigyan ko lang kayo ng overview, idea. So there are 4 stages or 4 major stages in the IT BPM business cycle. First, we have the business process outsourcing engagements. On this stage, it refers to the processes of establishing the client and service provider relationship, the formulation of the IT BPM contract, contract ni service provider to its client, including the contract or the financial contract and complying with the requirements implemented by the regulatory agencies or client. Second, managing outsourcing transitions. So in this stage, this is the process of transitioning the task, the activities, the processes from a client to a service provider to achieve the successful business relationships. Third, BPO operations management. On this stage, this is the process of um, managing the following operational areas: the performance management, the metrics and reporting, professional development, quality monitoring and analyzing, productivity monitoring and control, and continuous improvement initiatives. The last stage is the issue management and critical situation control. So this refers to managing the continuity of the business by maintaining the uninterrupted availability of all key business resources required to support essential business activities. Again, these four stages will be discussed in the succeeding modules, sa mga susunod nating modules. Question. Summary. So in this module, we have discussed the two types of outsourcing, the different outsourcing strategies, the common types of activities, tasks, and processes na pwedeng i-outsource at hindi, the key technologies and trends in outsourcing, and overview of the IT BPM business cycle. Question. Clarifications. Meron po. Sir, kukuha po ako ng quiz. Absent po ako nung nag-quiz po. Sige po. Paalala mo before midterms. Nga pala, yung quiz 1 natin, hindi ko muna siya i-record. Gawin ko siyang panghila ng grade. Magkakaroon tayo ng quiz before midterm. Tapos, itong quiz 1, for example, yung grade mo or grade ng ilan sa inyo, kunwari ay 74 final grade. So, dito na lang ako kukuha. Or, itong quiz 1 ang ating gagawing panghila. Ayan. Tapos, meron tayong recitation na nasa Google Classroom lang naman. Recitation 1, opinion-based naman to. E di kapag naggayanan, nagtuladan, for example, 10 points to. Tapos, nakitulad ka na lang, kunwari ay 10 kayong pare-parehas ang sagot. E di, ang gagawin natin, hati-hatiin natin yung score, 10 divided by 10. Tapos yun ang score nyo. So, ito, record ko siya as your recitation. Deadline hanggang mamayang gabi. So, instructions, many foreign companies have decided to offshore some of their processes to BPO companies in the Philippines. You have learned about the upside and the downside of offshoring for both the clients and service providers. As somebody who is either working or intending to work in the IT BPM industry, what are the opportunities and challenges in working in an offshore location such as the Philippines, but still provide service to a major international company or client based abroad. $11.59 po ang deadline. Then, bukas, second meeting, sa mga hindi pa tapos sa activity 1, sa interview, you can use our time to finish your activity 1. Never mind muna yung deadline kung hindi pa tapos. Schedule natin bukas ay 4 hanggang 4. So, bukas pa lang deadline till 4 p.m. Then may explain lang ako sa inyo, bukas din pala, na activity, our second and last activity for this course sa buong SEM. Dalawa na activity natin sa buong SEM. Explain ko lang siya para magkaroon na kayo ng idea, same groupings. Then next week ay yon. Siguro both meetings ay paggawa nyo ng activity 2. Meron pong question? Wala naman po. Kung wala na pong question, thank you for attending our synchronous class or discussion for Module 2. You can now leave the meeting. Again, thank you po.
Thank you po.
Thank you po.
Thank you po.